Hi guys, this is Fernando and welcome to another video here for the Modern Survivalist. In this case I'm going to be talking a little bit about relocating. In case you haven't been following up with the blog, I've left Argentina. I'm no longer living in Argentina and I'm living now in Northern Ireland. It's quite a change. It's a very different lifestyle and lots of things have been learned through the process of moving, of relocating over here. I've been trying to leave Argentina for many years, mostly trying to go to US, but it's not as easy as it seems when you try to do everything right, not just jump the border and go for it, but doing things properly as you're supposed to. So I've learned quite a few things in this process. It's actually the culmination of some time of effort and planification. So I want to share with you guys some of those things that I've learned. I want to share with you some of that experience and knowledge gained through that experience. What I generally do, knowledge through actual experience and not just suppositions or just guessing or just thinking this or that is going to be happening for whatever reason because it just occurs to me. No, it's gonna be what I actually ended up doing and how it worked for me, and well, the kind of lessons you learn along the way. You know, it's usually better if you learn from other people's experience, so that's where you'll be getting the advantage, right? So in this video I'm gonna be doing a several parts video because it's just impossible to wrap everything in just one, so it's going to be a few of them about relocating. This one is about relocating. When should you be doing it? When should you be relocating? What are the things you should be looking for? And the ones that say, okay, because of this is the reason why I just want to leave my country, I don't want to be living there anymore. Sometimes people jump to it. Sometimes people say, you know, someone got elected I don't like. You don't like the president, so I'm relocating. I'm leaving the country. And you don't like the way things are going in the last couple of years, and you just get off the ship. You know, just leave the country. It's maybe not the best reason for it. It has to be something that's really worth it. Relocating to some other country is not easy, especially not easy with a family. So in spite of sometimes what some people that have other interests in mind may say, relocating is very difficult. It's very hard, and if you are doing it, at least know what are the proper reasons for doing it. So I'm going to be writing those down. I'm going to be writing down the reasons that I know people have relocated before, and at least for me what makes sense. First of all, try to keep my handwriting as clear as possible. Crime, right? Crime. This would be number one for me. When crime is out of control, when you're not peaceful anymore, when the circumstances don't allow you to live peacefully, that's when you should be leaving. Alright, basically that's what happened to me in Argentina. I was just fed up of all the problem with crime, always being worried about what's gonna be happening to you tomorrow. I can put up with lots of things. I can tolerate a ton of things, but what I cannot stand is living in constant fear, not because I'm a fool or an idiot that I'm afraid of every stupid thing that's going on, just the circumstances were very bad indeed. It's not just me, it's you would ask people, you just drive around Buenos Aires and you know how it is. You know how it is in Argentina from living there. When people start getting killed like flies, we've had family members shot, I had friends killed. It happens in your neighborhood. It happens so much that you're just, you know, I get it that some people feel, okay, nothing's going to be happening to me. They live in this, they see the world through this pink shaded glasses, and you know, that's just not me. I think that's pretty stupid. I just cannot live that way. While I'm not paranoid by any means, I'm not stupid either. So if your neighborhood is getting hit often by criminals and home invasions become a matter of every single day in your neighborhood. And it's not just your neighborhood, it's other neighborhood as well. It's country clubs, it's private gated communities. When it gets to a point that there's no safe place, or that the only safe place is being locked, in a golden cage, because that's what some of these communities end up being, some of the nicest private gated neighborhoods and gated communities in Buenos Aires, especially in places like, in the north of Buenos Aires, where more of the richer folks live. That's a kind of lifestyle I don't want for myself. I don't want to be living in a gated community and knowing that on the outside it's all a freaking jungle. That's not life for me. So, and you see it when you drive around, and you see that I've showed it before, every single house has burglar bars. There's the house that doesn't have burglar bars get hit because it's the only one in the neighborhood that lacks them. And it's the same thing all across the country. That kind of crime problem, that kind of violence constantly, and you getting used to it, for me that's a priority. That's something that I just won't live with the rest of my life. Folks, it's 44 million Argentines living in Argentina right now. Okay, so there's millions of people that live that way, and I'm sure that if you ask, I don't know, many of them, I don't know what percentage, just come up with whatever figure you feel comfortable with, but I'm sure that if you ask many of them, they're going to be telling you that they love living there, and it's great for them. Now, truth is that after 2001, over 250,000 people left Argentina because of the crisis. So there's a significant amount of population that left the country, and they understood that that wasn't the type of life they wanted. There's people that I know of, many examples, I've mentioned it before in articles. One of the most relevant examples would be the one of Carolina Píparo, which is a woman that got shot after leaving the bank. She went to get some money. A criminal shot her on purpose in her 8-month pregnant belly, killing her unborn child. She left the country the following day. Now that to me is just a little bit too late. I just don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to be leaving a country that I know already is dangerous just after something so tragic happens to me, after losing your kids or losing your wife. I know of cases where there's been very extremely violent home invasions, and people just ran out of the country, left the following day. Since so many people already left since 2001, everyone in Argentina knows someone that is already living abroad. There's not a single family that has at least one family member or one very close friend already living in Spain and Italy, in some part of Europe or in US, somewhere that already left the country. So that's a possibility for most Argentines. Just leave the country and find someone to home them for a while until they get settled. I didn't that want to happen to me. I know of another case that this was killing me the last few weeks before leaving Argentina. There was this guy that left in 2001. He didn't like what was happening. He left because of the crisis and the crime wave that soon came after that. He went to US, and when after 10 years in 2010, he went back to Argentina to visit the family. The day that he got to Argentina, he went to buy a pack of cigarettes down the street, and he got shot and killed the same day that he arrived. He had been afraid of going back for 10 years, and the day he got back, he gets killed. I know that's extremely tragic, and the odds of that happening, but the thing is that the odds of something violent happening to you are very, very high. Since 2001, since I already have the year written here, 9 out of 10 Argentines have been involved in a violent crime at least once. Okay? Since 2001, I'm not talking their entire lifetime. Only since 2001 until now, at least 9 out of 10 Argentines have been involved in a violent crime, being a victim of one. That's not the kind of figures I can live with. So first of all, for me, that's crime, and it's an important one. If you see your country deteriorate to that point where crime is just ruining your life, maybe that's an excuse to leave, guys. Let's keep moving on. Let's take a look at number 2. Because of religious or dash political prosecutions, persecutions, all right, because you're being persecuted politically or religiously. Example, what happened in Germany with the Jews, they were going after them. They had a time when they knew things were getting bad, and a percentage of them left to US or other countries. Others prefer to stay because they thought it wouldn't get that bad. You know, if you think of it, it makes perfect sense. You always expect things to get better, not worse. Now, you have to be very careful because, you know, you see them restricting your rights, you see them going after you, and if it's just because of the religion you are, the color of your skin, or your political affiliation, that's a serious problem. That's something that could potentially get very, very bad. So when you start seeing this type of thing, and it's not just what happened in Germany, it's happened in more recent history as well. There's religious and ethnic persecution all over the world, in different little places where many times you don't even see it in the news. What happened with in Sarajevo in Bosnia, with the people that were of Muslim religion, they were getting their houses taken away from them. They were offered the opportunity to sign out their property, you know, and then leave. And after that, they weren't even allowed to leave. They just sieged the city. Okay? So those are the type of things you have to be very, very careful of. If there's political, religious, or ethnic persecution, you just have to consider the possibility of leaving your country right now, or as soon as possible. Don't wait, because timing is just a couple of days. It's just a day. You leave one day, and the following day, first you're invited to leave, and then you're not allowed to leave anymore. You know how that works out? It's just a matter of minutes sometimes. So something to keep in mind. 3, war. Okay, it's sometimes the persecution could end up in war. Sometimes not. For example, my grandparents, they left Spain because of the Civil War. The Civil War was very hard. It's not easy to live in a country that's in war. There was poverty, there was unemployment, and you know, most of all, I know this because of my grandmother, who I should be calling right now in a few minutes to check out how she's doing and such. And what my grandmother tells me all the time whenever I ask her about it is that they were hungry because of the war. There was not enough food to get by. It's they had a farm, but the food got taken away, and they were giving back coupons, and with those coupons you could just get a small piece of bread, and that was all you had for a day. And there's stories that she tells me of walking in the streets of Barcelona, where she was working at the time, and looking through the glass windows displays of the bakeries, and she would tell me that she imagined eating the food, you know, being very, very hungry, and she just dreaming and imagining as she saw it, as she stared at it, she imagines eating that food. That sort of thing, it's something you don't want to be going through, and especially you don't want your family to be going through that. So because of that, my grandmother, and on my mother's side, on my father's side as well, both of them emigrated from Spain to Argentina. All right, we have a map over here, just to make it more clear. They came from here to here, right? A few years later, they ended up in Argentina. They had jobs. They were making good money because at that time Argentina was doing pretty well. This is the way it goes down, folks. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. It's, you know, the circle of life, whatever you want to call it. So a few years later, they were living in Argentina, doing well. They were sending their kids to college. They became accountants and such, and they were doing great. The ones that stayed behind in Spain were not that great at that time. As time went by, Spain started doing better and better, and all of a sudden the crisis in Argentina went down in 2001, and it was a complete mess. People started leaving all over, and the children of the people that left Spain ended up going back to Spain for very, very good reasons. There was lots of job in Spain until a few years ago, not that long ago, when my parents and my brothers left Argentina. There was more job there, so, you know, went back and forth. So, and now there's a serious crisis in Spain, and lots of people are considering leaving as well. How bad it is? Is it bad enough? Is it bad enough to consider relocating and leaving Spain again? I don't know. For some people, it's obvious. Obviously, it is. The same thing for Greece, and some countries are going through very tough times. So, war, civil war. That's yet another reason why you may consider leaving. It's entirely understandable. What about number 4? Economic factors. Now, what I'm talking about here is, for example, a complete collapse of the country's political economical system, what we saw in Argentina. That's another reason why thousands of people ended up leaving. They would form lines for days in the different embassies looking for passports, seeing if they could get a citizenship through their parents or their grandparents. Those were very crazy days. I remember there was huge lines of people forming and hurrying up. My grandfather, being the wise man that he was, he got us his grandkids. He got us passports before all this went down, many years before 2001. From as early as I can remember, I remember one time being just a kid, and my parents, they weren't that motivated, but my grandfather, he took us himself. I remember going with my grandpa to the Spanish embassy and getting the passport with him, because he just wanted us to have that piece of paper that said you can come into this country and you have rights to be here. And it ended up being such a wise choice. I'll always be grateful for him for what he did, because that thing he did in that time, when everyone else was just smelling the flowers and saying, no, it's okay here, nothing's going to be happening, he just, having gone through a war himself, having gone through a civil war, and having had to leave the country and become a foreigner in a country with very little rights, and being a cast out in many ways, he knew the value of having a piece of paper that says, okay, you can go into this country and you're a citizen. You have every single right everyone else has. That's so valuable. And if you're listening to this and you have a family member in some that comes from some place in Europe, and you think it's possible for you to get dual citizenship or get a European Union citizenship some way, please, if you just hear any advice I give here in the blog, just go for it. Do it right now. It's a time that may make a huge difference in the future. It's very worth it. It's one of the most important things you could do. Having a dual citizenship, man. It's I know that I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. If my grandfather hadn't done that for us. Okay. So, what about the economic factors? It's causing you the inflation, the financial instability, and we had both we have. I'm not there anymore, but they're still going on. Both the crime and the economic problem, both of this are still a problem in Argentina. So that's why I ended up leaving. I wanted to leave many years ago, because the crime is a huge problem. Also, the economic problem is very important as well. You know what, guys? It's awful not to be able to plan for the future, for what's going to be happening next week, next month. Are you going to be having a job? Are you going to be even employed or not? Is your income going to be buying you something, a month from now? When you have like 25% inflation per year, like you have in Argentina, or sometimes more, and you have a government that doesn't even acknowledge that. And they say, well, this month the inflation is 1%. Well, the private firms say it's 2 or 3%. You have that instability, and the rules change all the time. And even the rules in such a corrupt country, they don't mean anything. And you can check that with Transparency International to check how corrupt Argentina is. When you have that sort of corruption problem, the rules are just written and unwritten however they see fit, or sometimes they don't even bother doing that. You just have to take it as it comes, and awful way to be living. So even if crime is not that huge of a problem, but the economic instability is that bad, and I mean that bad, I mean like prices doubling one day to another, inflation being similar to the one in Argentina. Hyperinflation. I'm not talking about what you guys are seeing in US right now. It is bad, but it's not hyperinflation. It's not out of control inflation where prices just go through the roof. So that's what I refer to in point number 4. Let's go to the last one, which is point number 5. Standard of living. Okay. Last reason why I think some people may end up deciding to leave or not. When your life quality, because of some of these, because of economic factors, because of social degradation, mostly caused by the economy, and maybe you're not seeing hyperinflation, you're not seeing something as drastic as it happens in a third world country, but you see a loss of life quality. Your standards of living are going seriously down, and you suddenly find yourself living in a third world country, which is something that I believe could happen in US. And there's been already a significant decrease of the standards of living in US. That's very clear by now. Now, how bad will it get? I really don't know. I have no idea. I don't dare make any stupid estimations. Like some gurus that say they're always promising that the end of the world is going to be coming, and that the end of America. And I find that actually bothers me a bit to see Americans criticize U.S. so much, and not on the things that you can criticize it, but people questioning if patriotism is worth it, if it's worth it to be patriotic in a country like U.S. I consider that an insult. If I'm an American and I see someone talking like that, I would suggest that they find another place to live. If they find it so insulting to live in U.S., why don't they just leave? And not just leave for holidays or to start companies abroad or just, bullshit people, but actually leave permanently and never come back. If they hate it so much, you find that often as well when people start with socialism, with communism. You have Cuba right there. Go down there and be happy with your communism and your socialism. If you hate capitalism and if you hate America so much, because it's I don't know. At least that's something that I see and actually bothers me. You may end up seeing your life quality decrease, and on education, on health services. You suddenly find yourself living in ways that you never thought you would be living. And this isn't as drastic as the other 4. All right, these ones are clearly reasons for leaving. Once you see these starting and getting very bad, just leave. Especially this one, just take a hike, get out of there. Don't wait until you see it getting worse, because if it's that crazy and war as well, it's not going to be getting better anytime soon. Just leave. Now here, this is a more delicate topic. This one, point number 5, is something where you have to make more considerations. Don't just jump into it. Maybe you find a solution moving within your country, especially if we're talking about U.S., good old U.S. over here, where you have different states with which, in many ways, each one is almost like a country of its own kind. There's different life standards in different ones, and maybe you're not liking the way you're living in LA anymore. You end up moving to Texas or to some other state that has a political inclination that is more along your views. You may move within US if your life quality, your life standards are decreasing too much in the place we are right now. I'm going to be talking about this in future videos. I don't want to cover this too much in this one, but just to put it out there, I wouldn't be leaving U.S. by any means, especially not now. Maybe if it gets worse, you never know if these things happen or not. But today, I think you had to be crazy to leave U.S., given the global context, all right? Because there's no place on Earth where the grass is so much greener on the other side that it's worth leaving America. It's not by a long shot. But that's something that we're going to be covering in a following video, all right? Your kids' education, that's something that anyone that leaves a country behind, like I did, thinks of. I think mostly of my kids. What can I say? That's what I think of. I like having a good life myself. I love the life I'm having here. It's been almost 2 months since we were living in Northern Ireland, and and I talk about it with my wife. We talk about it all the time. We still think that we're dreaming. We cannot believe that we're living this way. All right, and this goes to show that I'm not paranoid, I'm not a fool, I'm not an idiot. I know the difference between living well and living like we were living in Argentina. All right, I see people here and I see how they live, and I see how I'm living myself now. I see that there's not burglar bars in every single freaking window in the city, you know. I see that my neighbors don't live that way. I see that there's no fear in their faces, and I did see it in my neighbors' faces in Buenos Aires and in the rest of Argentina, for that matter. Anyone that's telling you that there's this secret little place in Argentina that is perfect, he's bullshitting you. All right, don't believe that. It's a lie. All right. Generally speaking, folks, and don't want to get through that again, generally speaking, South America in general is mostly third world countries. What used to be called third world countries, now developed nations, which is the more politically correct term. It's still third world countries. All right, the life quality you have in first world countries is nothing in comparison. It's another planet. You might as well be getting on a space shuttle and leaving to another planet, because that's how I feel it. You know, the peace of mind of knowing that your kids are safe, that your wife is safe, that there's not, you know, gangs of 4 or 5 organized criminals hitting people in your neighborhood or in the neighborhood next to you, and knowing that the following day it may be you. The peace of mind of living without that, that's amazing. Again, I talk about it with my wife, and we still can't believe it. How polite people are in this society. I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later, about especially about Northern Ireland and how I came up with that, and how happy I am with the choice I made. So, folks, just a few basics of why you may end up leaving your country or not. Some of the considerations you may want to be keeping in mind. Not coming from some dude trying to sell you anything, or someone with fantasy delusions, but coming from someone that actually did it very recently. Okay? So, folks, take care and see you on our next video. Bye bye.